Hello and welcome to episode 55 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello.
And our special guest this week, Dan from the Callous Daoboys.
Hello.
So we're playing this game for you. I mean, you wanted to do Mega Man, so...
Yeah, it's... When I saw that you started doing this podcast, I'm like, well, I got to do this. And then I asked you, like, well, you do Nintendo games? And you're like, no. PlayStation 1. I'm like, oh, okay, shit. And I had to, like, think about, like, what... I wanted to do Mega Man. Like, I love talking about this game series, especially the X series. It's one of my favorite games, if not my absolute favorite game, like, of all time. I have, like, house slippers that are Mega Man boots.
Nice.
And when you walk, they do, like, damage noises. So I had to turn those off because with every single step, it sounded like I was getting hit. It's literally my favorite series of all time, and I will take any opportunity to talk about it. If I will ramble on and on, like I'm caught up on like the lore of this game series. I'm the guy for this stuff. And X3, I mean, I don't know if I was supposed to say the title yet, but like this one, I remember renting all of these games when I was a kid. There was like a video game, or it was a video rental store, but they had a video game section, and it was still when Super Nintendo had some like relevancy, and we would rent the first 3 X games so often that one day we went to return them. There was like a 3-day rental period. One day we went to return them, and the guy was like, "Do you just want these?" Because we would return it, then immediately rent it again. He's like, "You can just buy these. Like, it's okay." And so we had all 3 of the original X series for Super Nintendo. Just there's like, dude, stop renting them. Just buy it.
I know you probably spent more money renting it than you would have just buying it to start.
That's literally what happened. Yeah. Like, my dad was just like, "Yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense."
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Mega Man, but I never really played any of the games. I've only played Mega Man Legends, which for some reason I had as a kid, which is an awesome game, but it's not this.
It's Legends is very, very different. I played it a little bit. My buddy had it on his Nintendo 64. I think it was just called Mega Man 64.
Yeah.
Same game. Those ones are fun. They're just so different. They are just so different.
I don't know. I think as a kid, I always wanted to play the 3D, like, cool new games. Like, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, so my first console was PS1. So at that point, I'm like, oh, I got to play all these cool new games. Like, I don't want to play this lame-ass 2D game, you know?
I didn't even know it was a thing. Like, the Super Nintendo was my first console, period. And my buddy of mine had a Nintendo 64, and I didn't get a new gen console until like GameCube came out, and my dad bought it like as a secret, and I wasn't supposed to tell my mom. So I just had Super Nintendo all the way up until GameCube. I played a couple N64 stuff and some PlayStation stuff here and there, but yeah, my console is Super Nintendo, and I will like defend the Super Nintendo till my dying breath.
Well, it's funny. Whenever we were doing this show, the idea always was to do PS1 just because, like, I have the most nostalgia for that. But
oh, sure,
part of me wanted to do like a Nintendo console or something. But I'm sure you've seen the way Nintendo is with anything based on their games. They just like copyright strike shit all the time. So I'm like,
they are so weird with how they handle that stuff. I remember starting to hear about it, like it was like maybe a year or 2 ago when if you like put up a video talking about the Zelda timeline, they would just like axe your channel or, you know, remove your monetization of those videos.
Yeah, so it's just like not worth it.
Them altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a nightmare for a while. Their legal team is a little psycho.
For sure.
Same thing with emulation too. They have a whole like vendetta against emulation, but like games from this era are dying. Some of them are becoming lost media. And you know, like I still have my cartridge for X3, and I could sell that for $300 if I wanted to. So
that's crazy.
It's, you know, like these things, some of these games, like the sequels, especially like for even like other series, like they just kind of they weren't manufactured as much as like the originals or whatever, or they weren't as popular. So like there's only a finite number of them in circulation, and they're not going to make any more, you know. And the virtual consoles, like those get shut down.
Yeah,
it just happens. Like the Wii shop is gone.
Mhm.
The 3DS shop is gone. Sometimes like they bring back the virtual console, but not all the same games. So this stuff is like disappearing, and like having this huge vendetta against emulation is kind of ridiculous because it's literally like archiving history, and for whatever reason they don't view it that way. They view it as piracy when it's like, hey, you don't manufacture this game and you haven't since 1987. So
Yeah, I mean,
what's
there's
the
no way for them to make money off of it now, so why do you care?
exactly. Who cares?
Yeah.
If it's not on your eShop, let it be. People couldn't play Earthbound. I mean, everyone knows that one.
Yeah.
Earthbound cartridges were like upwards of $500 to $1,000 for some reason. So it's just insane. Like that could be its own separate discussion. Like it's a rabbit hole, man.
Yeah, no, you're right. So, Mike, what is your history with Mega Man since you haven't spoken in a few minutes here?
I was just letting Dan do his thing and just go off on Nintendo.
Yeah.
Same thing with you. I never had a Super Nintendo, so my only experience was watching like cousins or friends playing it on their system, and maybe when it was my turn to play, I would give it a shot, but I never really touched it.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of game I feel like you can't just play for 5 minutes. Like, you really got to figure it out and get like the nuance and shit down, or there's no way.
There's a whole like technique around this. Like I'm watching the gameplay right now, and I keep seeing you fall into spike picks. I'm like, how'd that happen? But
listen, I'm just learning the game. All right, it's just the start. This is the beginning. All right, as my footage goes, you'll see.
No, it's. We'll get into that about X3 in a minute because it does not. Yeah, I'll save my thought on that. For later because. Yeah.
All right. So one more thing before we get into the game, I wanted to bring this up for an obvious reason. I used save states when I was playing this game solely just for the bosses.
Sure.
And I just, I wanted to see what you guys think about that. Like, what are you against save states? Like, do you think it like invalidates the game? Like, what do you guys think?
Save states are the only way I can enjoy a Final Fantasy game. So
that's fair.
I don't care. I have save states for like a bunch of really cool boss fights in games that you can't just put a code in to go to. So I have save states for like, various Mega Man games where it's like, I want to fight that boss. I'll load up save state 9 just to have fun.
Yeah.
And you already know my thoughts on save states. I mean, particularly whenever it's used to just get through the game and beat it. I always feel like it's not giving the true sense of what the game is meant for.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I did use save states for this game as well. So
nice. All right.
I will get into that later when we talk about it.
Well, and we could just briefly touch on this now. I just feel like it's ridiculous that you only get a couple tries at the boss and then you have to do the whole stage again.
Do the whole damn stage again.
Like, that's fucked up.
It's fucked up. And they fixed it in the game after this. They fixed it.
All right, I feel much better about playing the rest of these now because I was like, listen, are we going to just suffer?
The next one in this series is really good. It's really good. X4 is great.
Okay, good.
I promise. And you get to play as Zero in that one, and it's dope. And he has a sword.
You do play as Zero in this one too, but not in a fun way. Hey, all right, let's just get into this game. Mega Man X3 was released for the PlayStation in July of 1997. I couldn't find an actual release date for some reason. I don't know why. I checked like 5 websites. So that's what we get. It was released the year before on the Super Nintendo. It was developed by Capcom and published in Europe by Virgin Interactive Entertainment, which we didn't say yet. This only came out in Europe on the PS1. Europe and Japan, just not America. So,
yep.
But yeah, I mean, so where do you guys want to start here? There's a lot to talk about with this one.
The way I was introduced to the PlayStation version of this, or like, the not Super Nintendo version was I had the Mega Man X collection on GameCube, which was also on PlayStation 2. But I remember noticing that it was different. I didn't know what was different, but the music is obviously different in it.
Yeah.
It has all the cutscenes for the bosses, which is cool. It's cool that it has some opening cinematics and stuff. Because I like seeing this world brought to life beyond just gameplay and stuff like that. So it really makes me happy seeing extra movement and life brought to these characters.
Yeah.
But it's just different. It plays exactly the same. There's no graphical upgrades whatsoever, even though I didn't know why it was different when I played it as a kid. I'm just like, okay, cool. For whatever reason, this one is different. Don't know why. And then I find out later when I really started to learn these games. I'm like, oh, this is just a Japanese release of it or something. So,
well, I actually have the answer as to why it feels different. So back in the day, I don't think it's the same thing anymore, obviously, but European games, like games that are, it's called the PAL region, and they had 50 hertz instead of 60 hertz on their TVs. So this game runs at 50 FPS and not 60.
Oh, really?
So it feels slightly slower. Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, well, when I first started playing it, I was like, I feel like Mega Man usually feels faster than this, right? It didn't feel right.
That's the whole purpose behind the X games is he's faster, he can dash, and he's more mobile than the original guy.
Yeah. And I noticed it said it was running at 50 FPS, and I was like, wait, did I do something wrong? What's going on here? And I looked it up, and yeah, I mean, I guess it's going to be a thing going forward anytime we play a European-only game, but it's just strange. It's almost perfect, but not. It's just, you can't really put your finger on it unless you know.
No, that is very bizarre.
And I felt the same way, jumping into them. I was like, has he always been this sluggish moving? It just feels weird.
Yeah, it's just strange. I don't know. I mean, but to get us started, I guess, what do you think about the story? I mean, it's pretty much the same as every other Mega Man game, right, Dan? I mean,
it is the same as every other Mega Man game, at least since, X1, it's hey, Sigma's the bad guy, you gotta go kill him. There's a purple guy that looks like Boba Fett that you also gotta kill. He's in this too. But,
yeah.
The stories of these games are kind of throwaways half the time, especially after 4, you're like, oh, it could be new bad guys. No, it's Sigma. It's gonna be Sigma. Every single time it's Sigma. It's like in the classic series, oh well, now there's an evil Russian doctor instead of Wily. Guess what, man? It's Wily again. Psych, idiot. It's always Sigma in these games. He's either influencing stuff or he's not. But what's interesting is it's kind of touched on in X3, but in X2 it's revealed that Sigma's a virus. Because you kill him in the first game, but he's just hey, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to show back up. And the explanation for him showing back up, since he's a robot, is hey, my AI is actually a virus and I can corrupt other things. I'm way beyond just being a robot with once you turn him off, he's done for. No, he's a scary virus, and that's how he shows back up in X2. It's how he shows back up in X3. And that's how he corrupts the original bad guy of X3. And that's the story's fine. The story's fine. I like the thing that appeals to me about the X series is the concept of why he's called Mega Man X is because Dr. Light was well, he's a variable. He could either be humanity's salvation with humanity and Reploid's salvation. Reploids are robots for whatever reason. They can't just call them robots. Because they're different from robots because they have free will. But Dr. Light was hey, variable X, he could be the best thing that ever happens to this world or the absolute worst thing that ever happens to this world, and it's entirely up to him. And X is the reason that Reploids exist because Dr. Light invented free will for robots, and that's why X is so important because he's like literally the basis of everything that exists in this world. And like the theme for the first X game is called Variable X, and I just think that's a cool way, like the reason behind X, because like that's in mathematics, X is a variable. And I even have like a funny joke where my first kid, I'm gonna name him X, and then his 10th birthday present is he gets to choose any name he wants. I don't know if that's like allowed in this country, but like that's my idea anyway.
You're gonna have to fight Elon Musk for that one.
His that name's too long. This is just gonna be X, and 10th birthday, I'm gonna give him a piece of paper like, hey, you want to be Woody the Woodpecker or Poop Butt? That's your name. And when you're 18, you can change it, but you have to pay for that.
Yeah, you weren't kidding. You know all the Mega Man lore, huh? Jeez.
yeah, dude. I'm caught up.
I was not expecting the story to be that involved.
It's involved, but like the games themselves, like kind of pussyfoot around it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you kind of have to like either read the game manuals or find extra stuff along with it for that to like know all that extra stuff, which is fine. But to me that kind of makes it fun. Like some games like spoon feed you the story. Like I love the Final Fantasy games, but those are RPGs. Mega Man X is not an RPG.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rip my hair out if like every single boss had like a 5-minute discussion before I just end up blowing them up. I don't care. But there is like lore behind every character. They all have like a little perp, like every boss. They have like little, they have like important stuff, like why they are where they are, like why did they defect or whatever. So there's like little things about every little character. But it's never like explicitly thrown at you, which is fine.
Yeah, I mean, during the PS1s, like all the games are kind of like that. Very rarely, unless it's an RPG or something that is story forward, is there story in the game. I feel like it's always just, read the manual if you want to understand what's going on here.
And I mean, that's just how they were back then, and that's fine. It's what sucks is like when you play these games now, since they're not manufactured anymore, like we talked about earlier, you don't have the manual. You can look it up, like all these things are like readily available, and you can find the PDFs of all these manuals, like very high quality. But it's not something you would get if you just like get an emulator for this game, and because your friend tells you like, oh, you should play this game. You're not going to know the story. You're just like, I'm a blue guy that shoots stuff and they blow up and die, which is again fine, compelling stuff. It's great, it's fun, it's a blast, and that's all I needed when I was like 6 years old.
Well, remember, there's also the Mega Man X Legacy Collection, which I'm sure has all the manuals in it too.
Oh, it does. That's right. I forgot that that whole Legacy Collection is like out, like available for like on the Switch and like Xbox and all the modern systems. They games now.
I would imagine that one probably has the Super Nintendo version and not this one.
I believe it does. I got the second one because I didn't have readily available ways of playing X7 and X8. But I had the first 5 or 6 like in so many different forms. I'm like, I don't need to get this one.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, no one's playing Mega Man for the story for the most part. I would say, you just want to jump into it.
Yeah, it's a very jump into it game. You press start, you're in the game. No bullshit. No like, well, except for like the ones that we'll get to later. But you press start, you're killing stuff right away. No one's talking to you. You are shooting shit.
And that's all I've ever known from Mega Man is just you jump in, you kill bosses pretty much, and that's about it.
And it's a blast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'll start with my initial time playing this. And I know that with Mega Man, there is a boss order that you're supposed to do it in. That way you can get weapons to do stuff. I figured, I'm not going to look anything up. I'm just going to start playing it. So I just go into the Blast Hornet stage.
Sure.
And I just get my shit rocked when I get to the boss. Like, just one hit takes away half my fucking health bar.
Yep.
Yeah, dude. I think that's one of the big issues with X3 is like X1 and X2. I mean, I've done all these games where it's like Buster only, you don't use boss weaknesses, whatever. And that's like hard. It is hard. But there's something about X3 where I wouldn't even call X a glass cannon. He is just made of glass.
Yeah.
There's the cannon part's not really there. And there is a boss order for this. And it starts with Blizzard Buffalo because there's a way you can exploit his AI. You saw it a little bit when you were in his stage, when you were in his boss room. If you jump, if you're not attached to the floor or the wall when he like turns around after hitting the wall, after he rams into it, if you're not touching anything, he will think that you're on the wall that he just rammed into, and you can loop his AI to. You can stand right behind him and jump in the air when he looks at you, and he'll just hit the wall again, and you just use that time to charge up, and he will never once like step towards you. It is so that's why he's the first one, is because his AI is just absolutely broken. It's pretty funny.
I didn't even know that, but like what I ended up doing was, so I played it and I got to the boss and I was like, this feels like I'm missing something. And it was because I missed the upgrade for the boots.
Yep. And the boots upgrade is kind of not really obnoxious to get in that stage, but there's a snowstorm happening in that room. So you have to go find you might not have done this. I didn't see how you picked up the leg upgrade, but there's a little storm machine that you have to destroy that makes it so you can jump further to get the sub tank and also the leg upgrade. Because otherwise it holds you back. There's a lot of weird stuff in this game that is not explained all that well.
All I did was dash and jump, and I kind of like hit the edge of the platform and was able to wall jump to get up there. I didn't destroy the storm thing. Yeah.
There's a storm thing. I think you have to destroy that for the sub tank, but that's a whole nother headache because you have to use the leg upgrade to like boost upwards. But if you slightly move out of the way, one of those robots that shoots missiles at you respawns like immediately.
Yeah.
Like you move by a pixel in this game and everything respawns and tries to kill you again. It's incredibly frustrating. The enemy placement in this game, it just kind of feels like everything is there. Like there wasn't a lot of rhyme or reason to why certain enemies were where they were. Mm-hmm. Where in like X1, it felt very logical and very intuitive. And part of that is because the core team from X1 and X2 did not work on this game. It was actually outsourced because they're just like, well, we need another X game. So then while this was being developed, the core team was working on X4. And there are just some weird inconsistencies with how this game plays. And I think it's because it wasn't the core team. So they're like, well, we've played the first one, so we understand what happens. And that's kind of why it feels just odd.
I guess that makes sense. I mean, when picking this, obviously I just picked it because it was the first Mega Man game released on PS1. But like,
yep.
How did we know we were going to pick the worst one, I guess, you know?
Well, it's like, man, when we get to X6, then you'll really understand how terrible this series can be.
Well, okay.
X3 is just, to me, it is just okay. If I wanted someone to start this series, I would not say play this game first. I would probably say play this game like close to last, because it's just okay. It's fun. It's nostalgic as hell for me, and I can breeze through this thing, but like it has a lot of shortcomings, and a lot of it's the level design. Like it's just a lot of big empty rooms that kind of don't have a lot in it, and it's more verticality, which is cool. That's one thing that the X series introduced because you can wall jump. But see this room right here that you're going through. One guy, you can count on one hand how many enemies are in this room. And you're walking long ass. Another guy, that's cool. Oh look, there's one there. Get him.
Well, you'll like beat a boss, and then there won't be any enemies after that for a while. Yep. And half the time I'm like, I kind of wish there were, because I need health. And then you get to the next room and there's like a bunch of annoying enemies. You know what I mean? Like,
why is this room before the boss so big? I don't know. It's just boring. And also, did you love how long that walk back was? And if you drop down that hole and go to the left a little bit, you fall in spikes. Awesome. Because intuitively, that wall is on your right, so you're like, okay, well, there's probably a wall at the bottom, so I should start heading to the left. Psych, spike pit, go all the way back before the water section. Like that's crap.
The amount of blind jumps and blind things that are blind death below you is just obnoxious.
So many of those in this game. I don't want to like ruin the order of what you want to talk about because I will just. So you talk.
All right. Well, we talked about our experiences. Mike, what was your initial experience with this game?
Hell, to just sum it up into one word.
Yeah.
This is just a beatdown in gaming. Just so what I played 2 different playthroughs. I did one playthrough where I naturally just tried to play the game on my own. That took about 2 hours. Didn't make any progress. And then I did a second playthrough with save states to at least beat a boss and say I've done it. But yeah, it was torture the entire time.
That sucks.
Well, how far did you make it?
With the save states?
With save states.
I just wanted to beat one boss and then I called it there. I beat, which one did I beat? I beat Gravity Beetle. And then I was like, cool, I beat a boss. I can move on now.
I don't know. I mean, I think this game is still fun. Like, it's still a fun game to play. It's just, I feel like it's near impossible to play without save states unless you just spend all your time learning everything.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's near impossible. I would just say it's one of those games you just have to learn. And once you learn everything, then you can actually play it.
I just mean, like, it takes a long time to learn the bosses. And, like, you get 3 tries and then you have to do the whole level again. And, like, if I didn't use save states, I would have easily spent hours on just one stage to try and learn this boss.
And you still probably wouldn't be the boss.
Well, that's the thing, though. It's like, the way this game works is once you start getting the boss, I mean, this is how all of them work, I assume, but once you start getting the boss items and you know the order, pretty much after the first boss or first 2, I would say, it gets super easy for a while. Like, I beat a bunch of bosses first try.
There's there's like a kind of a trend in at least the X series. It started in X1. They call it like I've heard it called Spark Mandrill syndrome because there's a boss in the first game where once you get the literal first weapon from Chill Penguin, I acted like I didn't know and I had to think about it. Once you get that weapon, he cannot move an inch if you just time the shots properly. And that happens a lot in this game too. Like you could see it in the film here. Once you hit him a couple times with the ice weapon, he'll stop in his tracks completely and fall and then jump. And you can loop him constantly with that weapon and he will never attack you. He will just jump at you. And you can time that thing properly so he'll just fall right on it every single time. So the bosses become jokes. They become absolute jokes if you just have their weakness and you know like what they will repeat doing. Because it just loops their AI.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest one that I did was Crush Crawfish, where you use like the electric ability, and
I think it's the electric.
You literally don't do anything. Like I beat it in like 10 seconds the first try.
He will not let you. I think the worst in this game is getting Gravity Beetle's weapon and then going to Blast Hornet because he shoots out like little wasps at you, and you turn on the Gravity Beetle thing, and he just takes constant damage, crashes to the ground, and you can repeat it over and over and over again. It's like he won't even leave where he started the match at. It's one of those things. Like these bosses become absolute cakewalks if you just know how they loop.
Yeah.
Now I see in your footage here that you keep the air dashing. Is that the boot upgrade you're talking about?
Yes.
That would have been so convenient to have.
Yeah, that's the first time I had to look something up because I'm like, I looked up a playthrough of someone beating the first boss, Blizzard Buffalo, and they're air dashing, and I'm like, how can I get that? And yeah, we were talking about earlier, it's right above the boss, but you have to like dash, and you won't see it unless you kind of like know it's there almost.
Right. Oh, that would have been good to know.
I don't know. I mean, part of me is like, I kind of enjoy the experience of looking things up and, working my way through it. I mean, we've had this discussion for other games before. Like, I don't mind looking stuff up. I don't mind using a walkthrough, but you think the opposite, where you're like, you shouldn't have to.
Well, I mean, I don't think you shouldn't have to. It's everyone's playstyle. I just think for me, I just like to experience it on my own and learn on my own. Except for like the RPGs where it's just impossible to learn on your own, then I would use a walkthrough. But
Yeah.
Those are the only times I would ever use a walkthrough. Like some of the Final Fantasy VII stuff, when I first played that game, I had to look up a walkthrough because I was just like, I don't know where the hell I'm supposed to go.
I think every RPG we've played so far, we've had to use a walkthrough at some point. Especially the older ones, like there's just these weird convoluted things you would never think of.
Oh yeah. Or like when you have to kill a super boss, like I mean, we're not talking about Final Fantasy VII, but Ruby Weapon being a required kill is stupid, ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on the controls earlier a little bit, but I feel like the sluggish nature of this, being 50 FPS really hurts the controls, right? I mean, it feels wrong sometimes.
Ever noticed that? I wouldn't have known that if you didn't mention it, because I always play a Super Nintendo emulator for it, and it feels great. Like I'm zippy, I'm fast. I mean, I also like ride the dash button, so like I have like it's a 2 decades of playing this stupid game. Like I just know how to move around in it, but like I would have never known that about this port if you hadn't mentioned it.
Well, I guess that accounts for something. I mean, you've played way more of these than us, but
oh yeah,
I don't know. I felt like sometimes I wasn't able to move as fast as I needed to, but also I feel like the boss hitboxes are a little fucky sometimes too.
They can be. Your shots will go right. The final boss has the absolute smallest hitbox ever. After this, I'll send you a photo what the final boss looks like. It's Sigma, if surprise, but his head becomes this. His head is the hitbox on this giant mech body he has, and you have to hit the head. Nothing else will hurt him. It is the most painstakingly long and obnoxious final boss fight of any game, and the soundtrack for it is also pretty bad. It's very loopy and just boring. Which I don't know if you guys talk about the soundtracks of these games, but this one, yeah, this one is just okay.
I was gonna say I've heard other Mega Man soundtracks and they're great.
They're fucking awesome. They're so sick.
And this one, I'm like listening to it. I'm like, I couldn't think of one song that stood out to me the whole time I was playing, really.
Well, and the worst part is like the only thing other than like the frame rate, the only thing that's like special about this port is the music chip was it's a PlayStation 1 soundtrack. It uses those kind of sound fonts. So the original one is like all Super Nintendo stuff, and it rocks. It has like cool moments, but it unfortunately like it just kind of it feels like they didn't finish developing the soundtrack, which is just really strange. And the composer for it did the original Castlevania.
Oh.
So it's just like it's just odd that it's kind of boring.
He has the juice. He could have made it so much better.
It could have been. It could have been.
Well, also, even to what you just said with the sound font thing. So this is on a disc, so sound fonts mean nothing. They could have did whatever they wanted.
They literally could have done whatever they wanted, and it's just okay.
And I wonder what that is too, because we've had other games on the show where like a renowned composer works on a game and is like, this soundtrack was terrible, but like yet their catalog of work is like amazing.
I don't know. I mean, it just kind of seems like this is a half-ass port, maybe. I don't know.
It's a port that didn't need to happen.
Yeah.
It just really didn't need to happen. They should have ported X1 or something.
They should have just did X1, 2, and 3 in one disc. That would have been at least cooler.
They could have done that, but I don't know what the logic was behind releasing this port. Like, I don't get it. Like, the game already existed and it came out a year prior. It could have been the like how close because the X3 was released at like the tail end of the Super Nintendo's life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So it could have just been like kind of like a, hey, like we have the data for this or whatever. We can release this again. It just came out, and this is the new system. And all the X games after this, most of the Mega Man games after this were on PlayStation consoles.
Yeah.
So they broke away from they broke away from Nintendo to do these games. So that could have been it. I don't know.
I mean, this was also a thing during this era too. Like Chrono Trigger, a bunch of Final Fantasy games, all the Super Nintendo games came to PS1 for some reason.
Yep.
And the only thing they really add is just random cutscenes and loading screens. So,
which is cool.
Yeah, but like,
it's cool.
Another point to this game is like the loading takes forever, especially when you're saving. It takes so long.
Yeah,
and that's crazy because the Super Nintendo version is like, hey, here's passwords. All right, go, bye.
Well, it's just because it's on a disc and not on a cartridge. So like everything is going to have to be slower, but this one just feels really long. I mean, Mike, I would say this is probably up there with some of the longest, right?
Yeah. It's I can't think of which ones were the worst, but yeah, this is very slow. There was actually times when I thought the game was frozen, and I'm like, do I need to restart now?
Yeah.
Yeah. But nope, the game was just so it became a thing where if I thought the game was frozen, I'd give it at least a few minutes just to make sure it keeps going and I don't have to reset everything again.
Man, that bums me out. Like, but again, this is not the game that I would recommend people try X for the first time. It's just not. It doesn't function well. I mean, it functions fine. Like I will just keep saying it is fine.
Mm-hmm.
I hold a lot of nostalgia for it, but it's by no means the best, near the best in the series.
Yeah. Well, I brought it up earlier, but you can play as Zero in this game too, but you can only play as him for like some of the level, and then you can't play as him for the bosses.
Yeah, and he'll even go away before the mini boss rooms. There's a really good there's a really good ROM hack, I should say, for this where it makes Zero entirely playable and gives him like the weapons and everything. It's really cool, and it like changes up the cutscenes, and it was like a really cool fresh coat of paint for me to enjoy this game again. And I actually did a playthrough of that like a month ago or something, just because it was just fun.
That's cool. I mean, that's what I was going to touch on immediately right after that was you can play as him, but you can't air dash. You can't use any special weapons. So like, what's the fucking point?
It's because it's cool. Like, it's cool. His theme on the Super Nintendo, his theme song fucking kicks ass.
I mean, he's a sick character. I'm not going to disagree with that, but I just don't know, like, other than like, oh, it's cool, but that's it.
That's like kind of literally the only reason they did it. And you get to kind of experience how he plays, but the game after this, he plays entirely differently. He doesn't even have a gun. He doesn't have a buster anymore.
Yeah, and that's sick.
And it's dope, and it's sick, and it's awesome. But like this one, they kind of just added it in because like, I think it was Keiji Inafune wanted Zero to be the main character of this series, and it's so obvious when you get to do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they were only able to take it so far, which stinks because it's like he does more damage, he has more health, he's cool, he's red.
I was using him a lot, and then I was like, oh, wait, why do I not just switch to him and beat the boss? Like, this seems like an easy thought. And then I do that, and when you go into the next room, it's like, oh, don't worry. Or Mega Man jumps in and is like, no, this isn't your fight. I'll take care of it. And I'm like, no, well, I need to use the other guy.
It's a no-brainer. Like, you can play as this guy through like the entire stage, and it's like, just kidding. Silly.
And if you die with Zero, he's out. Like, I don't think he comes back.
Yeah, he's just out for the like you there's this silly little cutscene. You're just like, oh, I took too much damage. When in the first game he gets blown in half, and the second game is you put him back together and he's fine. Oh, that guy got me. Ooh, shut up. Shut up, bro.
Well, on that topic, Mike, I find it very annoying that after you beat a level, when you go to the next level, you don't get your lives back, you don't get your health back or anything.
Yep.
It's pretty punishing.
This is a cruel game.
They fixed that in the game right after this.
Okay.
Like your special weapon go literally gets replenished if you die. Because it's like, well, you probably will need that.
That's what I mean. It's like if I'm fighting a boss and I need that weapon and I die, I might as well just kill myself and do the whole stage again. Because
Exactly.
And that's just another more waste of time. I mean, some of these stages are pretty short though. So
They are really short. They just feel so big and empty. So they feel like kind of a slog almost. But they
Yeah.
are relatively short. Some of them are surprisingly very short. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head ones that are actually like really quick.
Well, also a big thing too is that you don't need to kill all the enemies throughout the level. I just
No.
found that you can skip a lot of them, just jump over them and keep moving because
You totally can, yeah.
they don't give you anything.
I thought about that, but then so you didn't find any of these, Mike, but you get these sub tanks and they're essentially like potions and refill your health.
Okay.
But you can only refill them if your health is at max and you find health on the ground. So like, for example, if you're at almost full health and you pick up one, it doesn't send the remainder to the tank. So it kind of benefits you to stay at full health and kill the enemy. They did fix that.
They fixed it in the next one. It'll like give a little, if you're at not full health and you have a sub tank, it'll give you like 75% and then put 25 in the sub tank.
Nice.
That is cool because
it's cool. It's smart. You can tell like the
Yeah.
main team on that one and not this one.
It sounds like we need to play the
Like,
next
that
game.
was
Yeah.
the first three anyway, so it's nothing new. It's just kind of like,
Yeah.
you know, they're just following tradition with this one.
Yeah, I mean, I just felt that I never had a sub tank to use because I could never refill it.
Right.
So
I get that.
And that might explain something because I had one and I didn't know what it was or how to use it. And I was like, all right, I guess this is just here and it does something, but I don't know what it is.
yeah, I mean, it does nothing unless it's filled. And then whenever you use it, you just go in the menu and use it and you refill your health. So like, you know, that probably would have helped you a lot, I would imagine, when you're fighting a boss.
Probably, yes. But what about, so here's something that Dan who is very, very knowledgeable and this could help me out with. There's these giant teleporter pads throughout levels.
I was wondering about that too.
What are those?
Those are actually they're not teleporter pads. You can find another pickup in this game, which is in Blast Hornet stage. That is, it's very, you would not know it was there. You need Tunnel Rhino's weapon for it, and you blow up some boxes, and then you go and find what's called a ride armor, which is just like this giant armor that has fists on it that punches shit. And you pick that up, and then you go on those pads, and then there's 3 others that you can pick up that either shoot missiles, have spike hands, or like are amphibious, and then you can use those throughout the level.
Oh,
Sounds pretty useful.
It is very useful, but like what's goofy, they're cool as fuck. In the first 2 games, they're really useful, and they pop up in areas where there's just like a fuck ton of enemies, just fucking punch shit, and
Yeah.
they die. Like one hit, guy with a shield that like you normally have to like wait for him to move his shield. No, fuck you, dead. But in this one, they it still does that. It still does that, but those sections aren't designed for the ride armor anymore. So it's just kind of like, there's not a lot of enemies that you can just punch and kill really quick and make it so flashy and fun. But it's the levels just aren't designed for it anymore. So it just kind of doesn't matter. And you can do it for a little bit, but then it goes away just as soon. So it's kind of whatever.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like you said, you get this cool armor and then you walk through a half-empty level, right?
Yep. You walk through a half level, big ass room, enemies kind of there, and sometimes rooms that are way too full of enemies.
But yeah, another thing which you didn't encounter, Mike, is I think after you beat a few bosses, I forget the guy. What's the bad guy's name in this? The scientist guy?
Dr. Doppler.
He sicks these 2 robots on you, Bit
Yes.
and Bite, who can fight you at any stage at any time.
Completely random. You have no idea where they are until you go into a room.
So I don't know if you noticed, there's in the middle of a level sometimes there's just a random room that looks like a boss fight, but there's nothing in there.
yeah.
Sometimes you just go in there and you have to fight them.
Oh, because I'm like, is this just to throw you off to get you scared that there will be a boss fight, but there's really not?
I mean,
But
it does do that still.
yes.
Sometimes the room just won't have them in it. It's supposed to be the next room you go into will have them, but sometimes it, like the next boss level you go to will have them in that room, but sometimes it doesn't. Like after that cutscene, they should be there. And then there's a third guy that shows up in that cutscene where you have to find a hidden teleporter to even go find it and fight him. So it's...
I did find that actually, and he destroyed me. So...
Oh yeah, he's tough. If you don't have the weakness for him, he is very tough. And he has that ride armor, he has that punchy thing, and that's what you would have gotten in those little pads. But he has like a souped up one, and then later on you like do a refight in like the final stages, and he has like a fucking massive one. It's kind of hysterical how big it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would fight the boss, and obviously I was hitting a save state right before I went into any boss fight, and I would lose the fight, load the state, and then the next time I walk in there, he just wouldn't be there anymore. So I'm like, all right.
Yep.
But if you fight him and you die, and you don't like load a save state or anything, now he's going to be in that room every time.
Oh.
It's weird, but they're not that hard. I beat one of them, the skinnier one. I didn't beat the bigger guy, but...
Oh, okay. So that's really cool. It gives you more variety into the levels that I didn't know about. So that's really cool. Now there's a lot of like walls throughout here that look like they're breakable, but is that a thing that you need an upgrade to do?
Which walls?
Just random levels. Like I'd be walking around and one section of wall very clearly looks like it should be breakable.
Yeah, there's like in the Blizzard Buffalo stage, there's like ice blocks that look like they go all the way down to like a pit, and you need pretty sure it's Tunnel Rhino's weapon, the drills. The drills are the drill weapon from Tunnel Rhino is the one that usually breaks those blocks. So if you see a wall, you're like, I should be able to destroy that. You probably can, but you need that specific weapon to do it. Or the ride armors. The ride armors can also do it.
That's what I figured. Okay.
Yeah, there was other parts, and I forget which stage, but there was like rocks blocking stuff, and I'm assuming you did the same thing for that.
That's with the charged version of the thunder weapon from Volt Catfish.
Okay.
The Volt Catfish weapon. If you charge that, you would not think it would do that because normally it's like a 3 thunder thing, and it shoots lightning out in a triangle shape. Cool, awesome, dope. But if you charge it up, he punches the ground and then shoots out a bunch of lightning. And it's like, okay, cool. But nothing would tell that it's only that one stage that the rocks would fall from that. And nothing tells you that would happen. Again, Super Nintendo game, these games don't normally like spoon feed you shit. It's just like, and I don't know, like that's a weird thing with this title specifically. It's like the first 2 games, they're pretty intuitive. They're like there's a section in the first X game where you get a new weapon and you're like, oh, I bet I could use this in this area and this will happen. And guess what? It does, and it's cool. And it's like, oh, if I use the fire, I bet these propane tanks will explode, and then I'll get a cool. And you do, and you get a heart tank, and it's sick. And it's like it's super intuitive. Like it's fucking propane tanks with like no fire. Oh, but I have fire, and it's very, it doesn't, it's, a show don't tell kind of thing.
Yeah.
This game does neither. Really. Like there's nothing that would tell me that, oh, if I charge up this electric weapon, I will do an earth-shattering move that will destroy bricks and giant boulders. What the fuck? Like, why would I assume that?
Yeah.
A lot of weird shit in this game that cool in concept, very poor in execution. Very, very poor in execution.
That's a great way to sum up the entire game.
It's like there's also some bottomless pits, like in the stage you were just in previously. Like if you drop down there, you unlock a ride armor. But
I would never do that.
Normally, if you fall into a pit, you die. Why the fuck would I jump into a pit?
That was my biggest complaint is it's like, oh, here's a pit. You're going to die. But then sometimes it's good things. And there's one pit, I forget which one it was, where I did a save state right before because I'm going to test this out. And I jumped and I did a wall ride down. So I would slowly go down. Oh, there's a secret area down there. I'm like, cool. So I'm going to keep going down, or there's a path I can jump to off the side. So I kept going down, and then I died because that second part of the pit was death while the first part wasn't.
Yep. I think the biggest way you could like sum up this game, like good ideas, very bad execution on
Yeah.
most of them. Like, it's cool. Like, this, you kill this guy in the first game. Like, you think you kill him for good. Now he's back, and it's like, oh shit, the Nemesis character is back. Like, this guy's cooler than Sigma. I just he looks like fucking Jango Fett. Like, that's
He does.
sick.
Yeah.
Over Cannon, he's fucking badass. And you know, they bring him back, and it's like, oh shit, what the fuck, he's back. That's cool. That's fucking awesome. But it's kind of like I don't really give a shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that's like, that's cool. I don't care. I don't know. I want this game to be like awesome, you know, and because I love this series, and like I even probably like when we get to X6, like I will have good things to say about that game because I have fun playing it. But it's notoriously like one of the worst ones in the entire series, and I don't know. It's you know, it's like having to put a dog down. Like you really you love this thing, but you just, I don't know. It just kind of stinks that sometimes this game is not as. It sucks to see low points in something you adore.
Yeah.
That's how this game feels.
I think the one thing that would have helped a lot, I mean, it wouldn't have made the game easier, but it would definitely made it more manageable, is if they had a crouch button. The amount of times that just a simple crouch would have been great, and I don't have it.
You'll never guess what you get in X5. You get to crouch. You get to get low to the ground.
It sounds like we're going to have a lot more fun going forward, I think. Huh?
I think so,
Oh,
yeah.
dude, X4 and X5 are really fucking good. X4 is fucking awesome. You get to play as X and Zero. You can't swap between them. You can in 5, though. But X4 is really fun. But while we're still talking about this one, like the cool idea, poor execution, like those the bit and bite guys.
Yeah.
If you defeat them with their technical weapon weakness, they are permanently destroyed. And if you do it to both of them, they come back to try to kill you again in the later stages. And like the final stages, like that was the thing from the first games. Like there's like 3 or 4 final stages with different bosses at the end, and then you fight the real bad guy, and that carries through in these games and the X games. And the final stages of this game, if you killed Bit and Bite like with their weakness and destroy them, a new boss will show up instead. And same thing with the guy that looks like Jango Fett, is called Vile. If you kill him with his weakness, he doesn't show up later. But if you don't, and then another boss, like that room is completely different, and you fight a different boss in there. And so that's good idea, good execution. Like this game has its moments. It has really cool little moments, but not all of them are like that. And that's the bummer with this game, is like there's really cool ideas. They get close, and some of it just kind of sucks. Like the Doppler fight, he's super easy, but he also has this annoying fucking mechanic that like he'll just randomly regenerate health. Fuck you. And okay, like he like regenerates health from your attacks. Even if
I hate that shit.
He will regenerate health from your attacks, even with his fucking weakness. Which is like, all right, man, cool. The bosses at the end they're fine. They're cool. There's like really cool designs for a lot of stuff in this, but some of it's just, you know, I keep saying it's just fine.
Yeah.
Just fine. Like the final stages are really fun. They that's where the soundtrack I think like picks up, but not on the PlayStation version. I think the PlayStation version has like a very inferior soundtrack, just because of the instruments they decided to use. Because like that old Super Nintendo like guitar is so cool. Also, the Neon Tiger theme is literally just My Michelle by Guns N' Roses.
Really?
They like note for note, they are the same song.
Oh, no, I'm gonna have to listen to that.
That was the last stage I played today, so I will listen to that as soon as we're done here.
Make sure you listen to like the Super Nintendo soundtrack for it, because it is literally My Michelle. If you play that, listen to the loop, and then go play My Michelle, it's like the it's fucking Guns N' Roses, and the composer's like, I don't know. Like, shut up.
I've never heard that before. Yeah.
What is that? It's like it's not even that one riff either. It's the entire, like, it's like every riff.
Well, that reminds me, like, with Crushed Crawfish, whenever I got into that, every time the music went to restart the loop, it starts off like it's gonna play the Power Rangers song. And every time I was like, and then it changes notes after like the fourth note. I'm like, every time it catches me off guard thinking that that's where they're going with it.
Yeah, no, it has some really cool moments, but like the Super Nintendo soundtrack is superior. What also kind of stinks about the PlayStation soundtrack with this is I think it just fades out right before it loops again.
It's so annoying. Yeah, I hate it.
That sucks. That's like really not cool. That's really boring. No other game in the series does that. Even the ones on the PlayStation 1, none of them do that. They all just normally loop. I don't know what happened. There was someone being lazy.
Yeah.
Jim, it's so funny how much better you are at fighting this boss than I am.
I'm not that good at it though.
I am no, dude. This guy kills me so fast if I don't have his weapon for him.
Well, I just kept seeing him. I'm like, I got to do something.
What the hell? I'm so bad at this guy. You're just like, yeah, I'm gonna jump over that. Oh, it's coming back. I'll jump over it again. Like,
well, see, you were making fun of my playthrough in the beginning, and now you see I'm getting good at it.
Oh shit! That reminds me. The cool thing about the X series or Mega Man in general is those games kind of teach you as you play, and X1 does a really good job of that. In the sense that, like, you know, you start and you're like pretty simple. You don't have a dash or anything, and then you pick up the leg upgrade. And then like in like the first recommended stage, and it's like very obvious, like, oh, this is how I get around in this game. Mm-hmm. But in X2 and X3, you start with that dash, and if you haven't played the games before, why would you know that? I mean, you'll figure it out eventually from just pressing buttons, but like there's just kind of like a lack of like instruction with how this game works.
Yeah.
Which is kind of frustrating. I don't really know how to explain it. It's just one of those things. I don't know. It just doesn't like want you to. It sometimes feels like it doesn't want you to play it.
Well, that's what I was getting at with the boss order thing. Like, if I didn't look it up, which did you look it up too, Mike, or no?
Nope.
Okay. Well,
I probably should have.
I just feel like if I could not look this up, like if I was playing this with no access to a walkthrough or anything, I would probably just quit because like half the bosses, you really either have to spend hours learning or have the ability, right? So
yeah,
I just feel like there'd be no way to make progress unless you knew.
I mean, I don't think that's something exclusive to X3. Unfortunately, like that is kind of just how these games have been since the classic series. You know, like some of them are pretty intuitive and it's like easy to figure out like, oh, he has a couple of attacks and that's what he does when, you know, and then they have like little tells and, you know, as your positioning is good, you'll be able to avoid them and not get hit. But it's not really something exclusive to this. I think the main problem with this game and like having to learn boss patterns is shit fucking kills you in this game. Like you fucking die in this game. Like you are, like I said earlier, you are just made of glass. And look how much health like you get taken out just from like that one little rocket, or like contact damage from enemies is insane in this game. Mm-hmm. It's fucking ridiculous sometimes, like how much damage like you actually take. And I think that's the biggest problem because it's not like that in like X1 and X2. Like sure you get hurt, but like it's almost like it's like they started you on hard mode in this game, and I don't know how to explain it. It's
well, especially when you have bosses like the buffalo and crawfish, where they literally will grab you and just hold you there. So it's like after they do that grab, and then if they throw you into a poor position, you're dead no matter what. So there's just no getting out of it, and then you're screwed.
Yeah,
I mean, they just want you to suffer. So,
yep.
I feel like I've said a lot about this game, like everything I kind of wanted to.
Yeah.
It's not the best one to start with. And at first I was like really amped. I'm like, oh, this game is actually really fun. Like, and then I went and played it. And it pissed me off. And it made me upset. So it's one of those things where it's like, I'm really excited to do this thing and like share it with some buddies. But it has like a couple shortcomings that are kind of inexcusable and don't really get fixed even with ROM hacks. The game just kind of is what it is. Mm-hmm. There's like fun ways to experience it, but Nah.
Yeah, I feel you.
That's why I'm stoked for like X4, because like that one has like really nice for like, it's just a fucking good game. And you can tell like the right people worked on it. It's fucking good.
So before we get to our scores, I'm going to read a couple sections from some reviews from the time and see what people were thinking when this game came out. So the PS1 version got mixed reviews. Obviously, we've talked about it for an hour already. German Magazine Video Games gave it a 66 out of 100, and they said, apart from the fact that the last Mega Man adventures have become more and more similar, it's probably a joke to simply over-convert the same game on more powerful consoles without any new features from the 16-bitters. How about slightly more extensive levels, more speed, or a character that can shoot upwards instead of just sideways? Which, yeah, all right.
Yep, I agree with all that.
I mean, it's not like they're going to remake the game. It just feels like they had to. I don't know. They were like, oh, well, we put this out on a dying console. Got to re-release it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like a cash grab. You know, I mean, it's the same shit still happens now. I mean, how many games come out for PS4 then get a PS5 version immediately? You know, it's like,
yeah,
shit never changes. So German magazine Fun Generation gave it a 6 out of 10, and they said, in summary, Mega Man leaves a pretty boring aftertaste. Capcom could have worked a little more innovatively with the last 16-bit part. To stage Mega Man's entry into the next generation era so cheaply, while other companies give their flagship characters bombastic appearances, suggests increasing lethargy in the development department. Jesus Christ. All right.
You got through it.
I made it. I made it through. But yeah, so that brings us to our scores. So we've talked about this game a lot. Dan, do you have a score ready to go out of 10?
5.
Damn.
5.
Wow.
It's a 5, dude.
Whoa. I didn't think you were going to go that low.
I did not either.
It's not that it's fun and I get nostalgia from it, but look, I'm not gonna lie, it's just fine. I'm not gonna say it's bad because I still enjoy playing it, but if I can't recommend my favorite series to someone, like I can't be like, oh, you should start with X3, then it's not above a 7.
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear you.
I agree.
So for me, I still had fun playing with this game, but all the problems and the fact that I was forced to use save states, I think, brings it to a 6 for me.
Okay.
Fair.
So going into this, I was like, I'm going to have to put on the blindfold for the firing squad because I'm going to be cruel. Dan just blowing it out there with a 5. I'm like, oh God, I wasn't even that bad. So playing this the entire time, we didn't even talk about, well, we briefly touched on it with how quickly the enemies regenerate. Like, you can even be on the same screen and they just pop up in front of you after you just kill them. And
no, dude, literally, you move over like a pixel.
Yep. So the entire time playing this, I don't know if you can agree, Jim, but this reminded me of Rayman.
Yeah.
This is Rayman, except there's a gun instead of you throwing your hand to kill the people. Because of that, the experiences being exactly the same, and all the complaints we've had with this one are the exact same ones on Rayman. I'm going to give it the same exact score as Rayman because I think they're very comparable. And with that, I gave it a 6.5. So I think it's fair to keep them at the same one.
Yeah, I mean, I think this game is definitely better than Rayman. It's more fun to me, and it's got more going on. And I think, like, you know, the bosses, the abilities, all that shit adds more to the game than Rayman had, which was just purely being mean to you. But
this is just being mean to you, but you get upgrades too.
Yeah. Well, you know, I gave Rayman a 5.5, so giving this a 6 checks out.
Yeah. Well, with all that, it will actually sit below Rayman because of the 3 people. But we will be right below Destruction Derby, right above Alundra at number 43 with a 5.83.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's a good number. You know what? I like that number. 5.83. I think that's fair for this game.
I don't know. I was so conflicted with it because, like, I still had fun playing it. Like, I wasn't miserable, but there was just so many things you can't ignore about it. So many little annoyances that, like, it all adds up So now when I think about it, I'm like, I don't want to fucking play this again.
Yep.
It does all add up, but it's a slow burn. When we get to X6, you'll be like, this sucks. I already have my score in mind for it before we get.
I think we should play them in the order they came out. So the next Mega Man game that came out is Mega Man 8.
It's fun. It's really fun.
Well, maybe we'll have a better experience in this one then.
I mean, we did talk about it from the beginning. We'll just always play them in the order that they came out. So
You guys will have more fun with 8 than this.
Well, I'm excited. We'll do this again, in maybe 6 months or something. Keep knocking out a couple Mega Man games a year. We'll see how it goes.
Hey, I will do it as often as you want me to. I love this series. Even the ones that are bad, I love talking about them. Because I have a lot to say about every single one.
Yeah, and I mean, bad games are sometimes more fun to talk about than good ones, so.
No, they literally are, because you have more stuff to say.
But all right, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.